Everyone knows that young people don't engage with the news anymore. This common sense statement is one of many that society has heard and accepted time and time again. We are constantly fed the idea that younger people care little about current society and a functioning democracy and are instead obsessed with trivial and inconsequential commercial entertainment. We are encouraged to believe that young people are becoming less and less involved in both the consumption and production of news, and that ultimately the future for today's youth is a bleak and uninformed one. However, are the standard academic definitions for youth engagement and the news accurate enough to substantiate these arguments? And what forms of news production do we consider to be legitimate news? According to Dr. Stephen Harrington, academics often argue one of two things. The first, he says, is a focus on youth's apparent disinterest in news, which is supposed evidence of their shallowness and lack of civic responsibility. The second, he says, is the popular idea that the down-market commercial news has distracted young people from the hard, serious news. However, Harrington himself argues it is not that young people are switching off the news or do not care about staying informed for that matter. They are instead switching over to forms of news that are more interesting and relevant to them. It is true that some programs, which have been classified as merely commercial entertainment and not serious news, have a certain appeal that has made them capable of reaching this younger demographic. Programs such as the 7 p.m. Project and the Panel are amongst those that have, until recently, been almost completely disregarded by academics as legitimate news programs. In the Week 6 lecture, Harrington suggests that these programs are employing new tools to engage younger viewers, and that, in many cases, this news is being presented in a more sophisticated and intelligent way than perhaps in some mainstream programs. An example of this was the segment presented on the popular television show The Chaser's War on Everything. The infamous segment was filmed at the 2008 APEC Summit, where the group drove a fake convoy through multiple security checkpoints. The segment was aired in an entertaining way that would not be classified as hard news. However, the fact remains that the chasers informed their viewers of a serious flaw in the Australian government's security protocol. So what does this mean in terms of news production? Should the mainstream news be replaced with a more entertaining and less rigid news model? As it stands, the boundaries of journalism are already being stretched with the rise of the blogosphere and an array of social networking mediums that facilitate citizen journalism. John Fisk describes an ideal news model that uses a greater number of voices, degrees of openness, and points of view. Perhaps then, superior news production can be achieved if the many facets of journalism join together and complement each other to engage a wider audience that will cater for all members of society. In conclusion, there is not a clear-cut definition of news, nor will there ever really be. It is dependent on what each individual deems relevant to their own lives. It is untrue to assume that young people are not engaging in the news based on a rigid concept of what that news is. The fact is, today's youth are finding new ways of staying informed and are turning to unique versions of news production. In doing so, they are spreading and enhancing democracy and its presence in society.